Hi, I'm Leslie and I'm going to talk you about Dadaism art. First of all, I'm going to tell you what Dadaism is. This was a revolutionary art movement created in the early of the 20th century as a response of the modern age. And one of the most characteristic features of this art was the artists tend to mock the art itself and by emphasize the illness, the absurd of the irrational. Um, this was not just like an art style but a cultural protest because at the time this movement was created was at the same time as the World War One first was taking place. Um, Dadaism artists they seek to demystify our work in the popular nonsense, but also they allows the viewer to interpret the works. Its origin was in Zurich, in Switzerland, in the 1960 around, and spread to other countries of Europe and US, mostly in New York and Paris. This became an international movement, and this movement has no like an original story about how it was created. Um, talking about the word Dadaism, but the most common history was that Richard Wilsenbeck found the name by plunging a knife into a dictionary in a random word. The word dada has a lot of different meanings in different languages. For example, it can mean hobby horse in French, and it is like a baby talk for yes yes in Slavic languages. The artists of this movement liked the word because it expressed all the how the art was. This the word has no sense, no like an only meaning. So the art also has the same features. The artists and the intellectuals felt that logic and reason have like led the destructions, so they turn into nonsense, irrationality, and chaos. In my opinion, I think Dadaism is kind of easy to recognize because artists of this movement normally like to play with objects and encouraging spur of the moment creativity. They use a lot of elements, for example, found the objects they randomly put in order to create like a collage or a montage or even like assemble of this product of the elements to create the art. Um, this type of art has influences by Cubism, Futurism, Abstraction, and Expressionism. Also, they have like one important key that was not to follow any no rule because it was like against of their beliefs. And also, they rejected the idea of art as a commodity, and they tend to transcend the boundaries of the traditional art. This type of art was anything but conventional because they emphasize, as I say, the illogical and the absurd and the irrational. Okay, now I'm going to talk you about Cabaret Voltaire. This was very important because it was the birthplace of Dadaism. It was founded by Hugo Ball and Emmy Hennings in February 5th of 1916 in the back room of a tavern. This was both a literal and symbolic space for artistic revolution and radical expression. Hugo Ball, it, his purpose was to attract intellectuals and artists to come, and for this he put out a press to invite them to come and make artistic entertainment. In that place, artists can make like music performances or just like reading the daily meetings. And the first event was in July of that same year. Also, the well, we have to know like the most important people in this project, who was Hugo Ball, and he was the founder. He was a German poet, and the co-founder was Emmy Hennings. She was a performer and poet, and Tristan Tzara. He was the author of Dada Manifestos, and in which these manifestos as written declaration that express the ideas, the goal, and the attitude of this movement. And Tristan Tzara was a Romanian poet and a theorist. Something we can keep in mind is that Dadaism has connections with other movements through the years, and I'm going to tell you about three of the most important movements for me. First of all, we have Surrealism. Surrealism grew out of Dada, but while Dada was focused on chaos and protest, Surrealism shifted toward exploration of the unconscious mind. And the difference are that Dada has a focus on breaking the rules, but Surrealism focus on create a new meaning. Also, they Dada make use of randomness and absurdity, and Surrealism they make use of the dreams, the unconscious mind, and also they keep in mind the ideas of Freud and theories. And here's an example, is the one on the left. And then we have pop art that iterates and reinterprets Dada artists' art, anti-art, and they both reject the traditional art, but the difference are that that mock the the war, the nationalism, but in the other hand, a pop art mocked of the consumism, the advertising, and also they have like the same. They both challenge the art by using mass cultural images. And here we have an example, the one in the middle. We can see that pop art make use of bright colors, are so powerful, and also have like a technique of kind of cartoon, for saying. And finally, punk rock, both turn rebellion into art. Also, they both reject the authority, the tradition, and the elitism. But pop rock art also rebel against the mainstream music, the politic, the capitalism. But they have like something in common, that the artists in both movements, everyone think that everybody can be an artist. Also, there were a lot of main artists in this movement. For example, we have Tristan Tzara, the one who created the manifestos, and he was, as I say, a Romanian poet and leading exponent of Dadaism. He tend to use the cut-up techniques and randomness and performance art to challenge the traditional literature. And also we have Marcel Duchamp. He was a French artist of the Dadaism persuasion. Also, he has like this thought that concept and intention matters more than technique. He is recognizing for his main contribution in the movement. For example, the first example I gave it to you was made by him. Also, we have Jean R. He is best known for his abstract, the organic shapes, and the use of the chance of art. Also, he developed iconography of organic forms called what best known as biomorphisms, which he used in his sculptures. And finally, Max Ernst. He helped to revolutionize the art by creating new techniques. For example, frottage. This was a technique in which you can rub like a rubbing pencil over texture, for example, leaves or wood, in order to create accidental patterns. And finally, I'm going to show you some of the most important arts. First, we have Fountain by Duchamp. This was one of the most controversial because Duchamp claimed that even the most ordinary object can be art if the artist choose them and recontextualize them. And even this work was submitted to a society called the Society of the Independent Artists that claimed that all works can be accepted. But even though they reject this one, proving that even the opening institutions have their limits. And also the original one was destroyed, but there are a lot of models created in supervision of Duchamp. The second one is Cut with the Kitchen Knife, that through the last Weimar Beer Belly Cultural Epoch of Germany by Hannah Hodge. This is kind of a collage using photos, text, maps, politicians, dancers, machines, a lot of stuffs. And even though this has no like a focal point of significance, in the title, the kitchen knife make reference of the woman's traditional roles. And finally, we have Mechanical Head by Roald Housman, and it symbolizes that how people imposed worldwide were becoming like dehumanized and programmed, defined by technology, and we can see that there's no expression on her face, just cold and just no emotions. There has like a kind of deep meaning in it. And I think, in my opinion, I think this is kind of a really it's a good way to express our ideas or thoughts in kind of funny way, because this is not like the traditional art that can be kind of difficult, but it is more easier because we can do like collage, just showing how we feel about a topic of the society and so on. And I don't know what you think. And that's all for me. Thank you.